The statements and opinions expressed in this episode are those of Dr. Sigman and his guests, and do not necessarily reflect the views of Veradigm.
It's time to do healthcare smarter. This is Smart Medicine, hosted by Dr. Scott Sigman and powered by Veradigm. Whether it's you, a loved one, or a friend of a friend, we've all been touched by cancer in some way. It's everywhere. And for so long, the C word carried this heavy, hopeless weight. But here's the good news. That's all changing. Advances in oncology are moving fast. So fast, in fact, that some leading voices in the field believe that within the next 10 years, we may be using a different C word more often. That word is cure. Today, we're diving into those bold possibilities with someone who's not only in the front lines of cancer care, but is also lighting up the internet. I'm talking about Dr. Sanjay Juneja, aka the Onc Doc, a triple board certified hematologist and medical oncologist who's racked up over 50 million views online by breaking down complex medical concepts into plain speak that anyone can understand. He's a physician, educator, tech enthusiast, and fellow podcast host, and today he's here to share his story, what gives him hope, and how AI is transforming the way we diagnose, treat, and discover new cancer therapies. Dr. Sanjay, welcome to the Smart Medicine Podcast, brother.
It's an honor to be here.
We're thrilled to have you on. No, seriously, I mean, you're doing amazing work, and we're really excited to be able to share your concepts and ideas and be able to really scale your message about current cancer treatment, where we're going. And I truly, really love the way in which you present your material in a way that people can truly understand. But let's start at the beginning, right? So you're a wizard, you're a triple boarded certified oncologist, you're a nationally recognized educator. You're still very early on in your career. But tell us about where it started, from where in your background, what experience sort of shaped your journey of heading into medicine and healing in particular.
Funny enough, I wanted to be a middle school science teacher for the longest. I just thought it was so cool when you can kind of unlock something like the explanation of friction or whatever in the physics realm primarily, just makes you appreciate the beauty of life, so to speak. But then I got into a car accident in high school and essentially was rendered legally blind for several weeks. And when people would ask, weren't you terrified you'd never get your sight back, et cetera? At first, I'd be like, no, I wasn't too worried. And then I started thinking, like, why wasn't I worried about this? And I realized it was because my ophthalmologist, Dr. Grenier, was just so good about telling me what was up, why the pressures were so high, how that happened from the trauma, why the pain is so bad when I dilate it, what our goals were. And these little hurdles made this whole experience like actually periods of high five rather than just sitting in fear. And so I realized how important education was. Of course, doctor is originally means to teach. So that's what took me to medical school. And then, believe it or not, I just wanted the autonomy to be able to scratch my nose if I have an itch. So ophthalmology and the OR wasn't necessarily a thing for me. And I thought that cancer education in something scary like cancer would be the play for how you can make people's experiences less scary if possible.
Yeah. And I mean, cancer is scary. It's a devastating diagnosis for the patient, for family members. It really takes a very unique individual to be able to have the empathy and compassion to be able to help with a diagnosis and then provide them hope that there are things that can be done to be able to help them. You have really become a trusted and influential voice across social media. You break down cancer care with clarity, empathy. I really enjoy that you bring in humor to something that is really not filled with humor. So what sparked your decision to start sharing medical content online? Was there a particular moment that really struck you that these platforms could really help shape your messaging?
Yeah, so I actually didn't do much social media until my chief fellow year at Weisweiler. My wife is also actually a hemonc, and she had to start practice. She was a year ahead of me. So she was about 4 hours away. So it was solely for that reason. At first, it wasn't medical, but then I started getting a lot of followers for this dancing stuff, being a Gemini, half joking. And when I got that, in my culture, in Indian culture, it's kind of like you really don't want to do anything in vain. If for some reason you have some kind of attention or this, that, and the other, you need to make it productive and foster something. And so at first I started talking about screening with cancer and kind of explaining these concepts. It's very scary to see your fingernails dry up or fall off or hands get discolored. Terrifying even, unless you explain that for the treatment for colon cancer. And I started getting these comments because I'm so relieved, or I never was so worried it meant I was getting sick, etc. And you realized how just talking about things, sadly, just in the current system, there's just not enough time to talk about everything all the time and remind it that social media was a way to have an evergreen source of information. So that's really what started it, was recognizing that, one, you had to kind of meet in the middle as far as the humor and the quote unquote trends go. But two, the hope is, and the real problem that I was trying to tackle is the disparity, right? We hear about these buzzwords, inequity and standard of care and democratize. But the truth is, updates are happening so fast. Scientific discovery is at an all-time high. All that's great. But what is tragic, sickening, is if by knowing that something is superior in the new standard of care, if it's still lagging on getting delivered to Americans, let alone across the world, that itself is a huge tragedy. And so that was what my focus was how do we make sure that if I can't see every patient in my office, can I ensure that they are empowered? And that's where social media was helping. It was like you get these comments that go, my doctor wasn't aware of this, or this was missed or checked, because that happens everywhere. Like no one is spared of that. I actually got an email last week from a creator, and she said, because of your post, I asked about my HER2 low and I actually have no evidence of disease. She's stage 4, late in her treatment cycle.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing though, it's not just about the patients, right? Through social media, you're able to communicate a message, first and foremost, to patients that you will never meet. You're also helping to educate providers to let them know that there may be some nuance of treatment that you haven't quite seen yet that should bring to your attention. And that is marvelous. That is the gift of social media. So speaking about social media in particular, I know you're a FIGS ambassador. We're going to give a shout out to Anam Hashmina, who is a friend of both of ours. Both of us have our FIGS on today, which, I think is another great way to be able to celebrate healthcare providers. So for the doctors who are listening, who are thinking about stepping into social media to be able to share their brand and their messaging, what advice would you give them? And how can you build a presence that's both authentic and impactful?
I think the most important thing is to recognize, again, doctor meaning teacher, all right? Like in the most traditional Latin sense, you're doing it all the time. Like you're doing it in your clinic room and in your office and every time you have a conversation with patients. What you're doing on social media, for the most part, regardless of what you think of it as with music and dancing and trends, at its core, if you feel like there is something that just tracks or works with your patients, like you've heard, I understood that surgery or what an arthroscopy is when you explained XYZ, or now I see why I need this brain surgery, whatever that is. Don't you want or hope that anyone that's needing that procedure outside a 100-mile radius from you also gets that message? If you're good at it, I imagine if you're in medicine, you're altruistic and you want to see good in the world, democratize that. And that is the power of what social media can do, because it can land on 1 million to 2 million eyeballs in 24 hours. And if you don't believe me that it can have impact, you'll start seeing just hundreds of comments of how somebody's life has changed. And sometimes those comments will be 2 or 3 months later. There's so much out there that is unknown. If you can thread that needle on something that is remotely wanted to be viewed and also gives them something that could change their life or their parents' life or their siblings' life, someone would argue it's an ethical responsibility to do so.
Along those lines, you've really built an enormous audience, and your specialty, your brand, if you will, is to break down complex medical issues and ideas into plain, relatable language. So what's the biggest thing that you've learned through that process about bridging the gap between medical knowledge and patient understanding?
I mean, on a personal level, like with the patient yourself, you want to know your patient. So you almost want to I learned about baseball years ago and it was probably the only sport I didn't play, but then football and then automotives and then gardening, because there are analogies I can use the better I understand my patient to be able to have an apt understanding. I can't Google, tell me an analogy for chemo and gardening, right? But when you talk about fumigating a garden because it has a ton of weeds and you just need to make everything from scratch, that is very similar to doing an allo stem cell transplant, where you're just wiping out the bone marrow and seeding it and fertilizing it with other person's stem cells and hoping it grows with cells that are now not your own. And so the way these things come is to really have to educate yourself and make it kind of dynamic and have that dexterity to be able to see those kind of illustrations with the same mechanical processes that are happening in the complicated human body, which at the end of the day, complicated is debatable because it's pretty darn consistent.
So all of our listeners know that I always say, whatever you're saying, my mother Judy has to be able to understand it. And it's my gig. And with cancer in particular, being able to communicate to someone in a way that they can truly understand what it is that's wrong with them. And then also be able to provide a treatment. There's hope. We're going to be able to care for you. And being able to share that in an empathetic way, I think is really, really outstanding. All right. So Dr. Sanjay, let's start at square one. So my mother Judy can understand, what is cancer and what's the simplest way to explain what's happening in the body and why even with our most advanced treatments, it's still so difficult to completely eliminate cancer.
The challenging thing about cancer is you have to realize cancer cells are your own cells. They have the same coding as all of your other cells. They're not a foreign body. They're not a parasite. They're not an insect. It's not even just a battle against yourself, because those cancer cells that have your DNA, they have your fingerprint if they committed a murder. But on top of that, you're fighting a toolbox that has been manufactured and optimized over the thousands of years of the human survival. We are such ingrates because we don't think about how good of a job our body and our cells do to not just go rogue. Like, why doesn't my nail grow into my cuticle? Why doesn't my thumb grow longer next month? How does it know to do so obediently everything it's supposed to? Well, eventually it doesn't. It becomes unruly. It behaves as if it needs to survive in an area that is foreign to what it knows. And so it starts behaving as if it needs to survive. And that's why cancers all of a sudden break all the rules. They grow more than they should. They grow faster than they should. They disguise themselves from your immune system that are the snipers that are supposed to kill them and have been killing sketchy cells your whole life. But all of a sudden, they're disguised, they're camouflaged. They pull out every fail stop to go inherently in grow, survive mode in your own body. So now the question is, how do you select for a population of cells without injuring or killing your own cells, except for taking it out, right? So that's why surgery was always going to be the best. Is because if you have a population or a colony that's rogue, if you could cut that out and liberally the stuff around it to be able to take it out, now that whole cell, down to the last one, it's gone, right? That's why stage 1 means it's much smaller. It hasn't gone anywhere. It hasn't hopped on the highway, your blood or your lymph system, quote unquote. These are highways where cancer can spread. It hasn't done any of that. But when it has, stage 4 means it's gone far away. Or stage 3 means it's already kind of gone down multiple exits down the interstate. It's on the interstate. It hasn't gotten off, but it's on. It's left the neighborhood. When these things happen, now what? How do you go select for cells that are your own and have your own properties in DNA that are behaving very ugly? That's the challenge.
So look, when I was your age, cancer was a bad diagnosis. Metastatic cancer was almost always a death sentence. Lung cancer, breast cancer, it was your time. There were no realistic cures. And more often than not, the cures were worse than the disease. It created all kinds of secondary problems to your healthy cells. So it really is remarkable for me living through this timeline of seeing really the changes that we're seeing in cancer care, and really over the past decade in particular, the advances have been amazing. Immunotherapy, precision targeted treatments, really they've changed the landscape of oncology management. So in particular, why is it that this era has seen such revolutionary change in the way we're treating cancer?
I wish that was a quick answer, but I'll tell you the quickest answer. And it basically is that we went back to the basics. Because the one thing that has really changed cancer treatment altogether, you already said it, is immune therapy. And then you may have heard of something called CAR T therapy. The point is, both of these strategies actually go back to the basics of using your own body's immune system, your safety people, your guards, the National Guard, the snipers, whatever you want to call them. It's enabling them to do what they've done their entire lives in your body or for the duration of your lives. Our bodies have always taken care of us and killed things that look sketchy or rogue or irascible. And that's what happens. They just create a fuss. They get neutralized. Cancer is something that escaped your immune system. If you can re-enable your immune system, then you could potentially do what you've always done, which is take care of a colony for good. And that's why we can finally use the word cure in metastatic stage 4 cancers that used to be horrific, like melanoma. Melanoma has completely changed stage 4 due to immune therapy. And that's just re-enabling your immune system to go to see the disease and kill it. Unlike chemotherapies that are direct poison. Yes, they're poison because cancer cells replicate fast, much faster than they're supposed to. The chemo is literally injury during replication. So what happens if there's still a role for chemo. If you have a ton of cancer all over your body, God forbid, and it's hungry, giving a few doses of chemo can significantly reduce that potentially down 95% even. Whereas immune therapy and all these other things take 6 weeks and you're not going to be alive. So like that's the difference. That's why I don't think chemo is going away. It can really hack away the yard if you bought a house that's overgrown for 2 years and you got to just knock everything down before you start pruning. Like it can do the knockdown. And then you get creative with the pruning. And that's targeted therapy and some of these other things.
I think that's great. The body has an incredible ability to heal itself. But for some reason, whether it's chronic inflammation or cancer, there's like a stall effect that happens. And the natural ability for us to get these things out of our system doesn't work. And so what's happening, we're going to go in, we're going to grab that stalled system, we're going to turn it back on. I love the mission Dr. Juneja is on, educating, empowering, and making even the most intimidating topics feel digestible. Now, up to this point, we've covered a lot. But here's what I'm thinking. Cancer is evolving, but so are we. And right now, some of the most exciting breakthroughs in medicine are being powered by AI. Our tools are getting smarter by the minute. So what happens in cancer care when AI enters the picture? That's exactly where we're headed next. This episode of Smart Medicine is powered by Veradigm. By connecting data, providers, and insights across the healthcare ecosystem, Veradigm is accelerating the future of precision medicine. Learn more at Veradigm.com. So, let's talk a little bit now about AI, which you are also a super specialist, right? Mm-hmm. But AI really is making a huge impact in oncology at this point. Whether it's improving diagnostic ability, guiding personalized treatments. So again, I mean, many of our listeners, we know about AI, but we don't really know about AI. And how has AI become such an integral part of cancer care? And what problems is it helping you to solve with your patients on a day-to-day basis?
When you think about AI, very basically, it's predictability. It's pattern recognition. Give me a whole bunch of stuff. I'm going to recognize some patterns, and then I'm going to do my darn best to best predict based on those patterns, which is why we are so spoiled that we can go into Google Maps or Waze and say, this is the time that I would like to leave tomorrow or next week on a Monday. And it's going to do a darn good job of telling you about how long it's going to take to go to X to Y. And it's not because it has a crystal ball. It's because it's seen enough Mondays at those hours to give you darn to the minute of how long it's going to take. It's not because it's a crystal ball, right? Now, we started this podcast with you asking me a question. Hey, that whole cancer thing, it's been decades. How come we can't do better? It's not because we don't have a ton of sad cases. There is an aggregate of human tragedy that is losing people to cancer. And that is the reason behind your question. How come we have so much and yet aren't curing stage 4s left and right, this, that, and the other? Now insert AI. If you could have pattern recognition, but with variables, quote unquote, in parallel, meaning I can think about 2 or 3 things. We can't process all of those different things. Who's the runner? Who's not? Who has turmeric in their diet or eats curry? Who doesn't? This, that, and the other. Because the human brain can only do so much and it's hard to do control studies. But AI can. If you give it enough data, it's extremely gifted at knowing what those things in parallel do and don't do. Then insert who lived, who didn't, who had great responses, who didn't, who got toxic, who didn't, what medications were they on, what ethnicity were they, what were their family. Now you can start appreciating, whoa, what if I said breast cancer in a 43-year-old that's triple negative, meaning negative hormones, negative HER2. And you start processing all of the things that make a difference. That's the world we live in, and that's the world we should live in. And that's where people get excited about AI. This is one example, let alone a whole bunch of other things like scientific drug discovery.
This is exactly why I am bullish on AI for humanity, right? I mean, you can do your doom scroll on Instagram or TikTok, and you're hearing about all these people. The Terminator is going to come. The year 3035, robots are going to be attacking us. But I mean, these are the stories that really can set us apart. As a doctor and a patient, you sit in a room, you listen to a story, you use your experience of the time in medical school and training and the things that you've learned. But now you can literally jump into that AI world with another 10,000 oncologists from around the world who have shared their experiences in the electronic health record or wherever it may be. And then you're getting so much more knowledge and so much more information to be able to draw from. So again, I think that's a wonderful, wonderful description of how we're using AI in oncological care. Now, you brought up CAR T cell therapy. So I think I know that you're really genuinely excited about that as well. It's been known as the future of cancer treatment, but I really want our listeners to truly understand what CAR T is, why it is so revolutionary, and how it's going to be a game changer for today and for tomorrow's care.
We'd already talked about how the immune system is your guard, and it's always done a good job. If you're an adult, of any kind, and you are cancer-free at this moment, then it's done a good job of taking care of the things it needs to take care of. If there's one word I want you to remember or just stick to memory, it's the word lymphocyte. So lymphocytes are the ones that are kind of snipers or Marines, and they're able to take care of things, identify them and kill them or neutralize them. That's your defense. So it's defending you against foreign bodies. It's the concept behind boosters and vaccines and why if you had chickenpox, you don't have to worry about it for a while because those lymphocytes remember and it's going to kill it if you get re-exposed, right? With cancer, you take those lymphocytes out, you feed them with the information they need to go identify the cancer cell, and then you infuse it back into your body. And that's why it's curing lymphomas and blood cancers and even autoimmune disease. Because if there is something identifiable about that autoimmune disease or that cancer, a protein, a piece of clothing, orange fedora hat, green sweater, V-neck, if there's something unique, you tag it onto the lymphocyte and it goes and kills it. And that's why these responses are absolutely absurd.
So how often does a patient need to get CAR T, and how long does it last? How long is it out there sniping away?
It literally can be permanent remissions. Like it can just be, if all of the colony looks the same, meaning like cancers do evolve over time. Like if you have years long diagnosis, you can have different villages that have different dialects, right? Even though they're in the same country. When that starts happening, CAR T doesn't work as well. But if everything is uniform, if the culture is uniform across the village, then you can have permanent responses. You go in, you get your CAR T once, and you kind of watch really closely for 2 weeks, because if it does too good of a job, then you can imagine a terrible fever and having a really bad infection response, kind of like that's what it would look like. We watch to make sure that doesn't happen. And then you could be good. You could go down to that last 0.1% cell that you mentioned. The times that it's 99.9% and not 100% is when something looks a little different, when it already evolved, when there's already a dialect in the accent. And that is the reason behind what I learned on social media. It was reasonable. People would say, oh, all the disease is gone on the scans, even though it was everywhere. But then magically 13 months later, something pops up as a recurrence. It's sketchy. This is a way to make money. I'm like, that sounds sketchy. I get it. The reason it popped up is it didn't pop up. It persisted. It just wasn't big enough to see, because you need about 200 million cells to see it on a CAT scan. Like, it's clear if it's 50,000 cancer cells. Then you have to wait for that 50,000 to duplicate all the way to 2 million before you even, or 200 million before you see a mass or a nodule on that scan to recognize that it was there the whole time.
Yeah, but I mean, that's so incredibly hopeful. It's so incredibly innovative. We're still at the beginning of the journey of CAR T, right? We're only going to get better at it. And as an orthopedic surgeon, I'm thinking out loud, well, if we can send these guys out to kill stuff, they can probably also deliver some stuff, right? How about we deliver some healthy chondrocytes with this type of treatment and let that grow back in the knee joint instead of all this crazy surgery stuff that we do? That would be remarkable. So this is exciting technology, one that I'm going to be continuing to pay attention to. So let's move on to another subject, which I think is very popular and people are always asking and wanting to know. It seems to be on everyone's minds, and that is the role of supplements, nutrition, generalized inflammation. The microbiome is the hottest topic that you can talk about. And I want to know how these things fit into the conversation for treatment. Are they fringe topics, or are they really going to be able to play a valuable role in how we're looking at maybe cancer prevention or perhaps aiding in cancer treatment as well?
So this is challenging, and it's challenging because I'm going to have to wear two hats, and that's because that same concept of confoundment or confounders at the beginning, that has not been fully dissected in a traditional medicine way, at least when it relates to like cancer, like this one works, this one doesn't, this one does, et cetera, et cetera. What I can tell you and what the science does show is there is no question that ongoing inflammation decreases the immune system, which we already said increases your chance of cancer. Ongoing inflammation is bad for a lot of reasons, including cancer risk. A weakened immune system, which does happen from inflammation or uncontrolled sleep apnea, for example, because your stress hormones come up. So there's all kinds of reasons that your immune system can be low. That also weakens the immune system. The third piece is we know that the immune system and how, again, strong the dexterity is, how comprehensive is this immune system relates to things like allergies, for example. So there's all this talk about how we've made our lifestyles too narrow. Like we don't get enough exposures. We don't like walk around barefoot anymore, play in the soil. And therefore everyone's getting allergies all the time. Well, there's a similar relationship with the gut and the gut microbiome, meaning what you put in your mouth, and also how flexible the immune system is. And so that's where that concept lies that you're asking about. Microbiome, cancer, immune system. Having diets that are rich in fruits and vegetables, which are also prebiotics and probiotics and fiber, having a healthy gut appears to have a healthy immune system, which is where this loose relationship of potentially decreased cancer occurs, because now you can appreciate this trifecta, or this triangle. As far as supplements individually, the place that any traditional MD or DO gets stuck is we don't know. If it's not prescribed, you don't know what you're getting. And that's the problem. Because they can assert or they can claim this is 30% this, 40% that, 20%, but there's just no way to verify or validate. That doesn't mean it doesn't work, right? That's where I get frustrated. People are like, oh, so we don't, it doesn't mean it doesn't work. It doesn't mean there's not evidence that like these things can. It's just that part isn't regulated. But I think there are things out there that people unquestionably agree. Omega-3s, fish oil stuff, vitamin D are two strong components or have influence over the immune system, over inflammation, and overlap the same things with cancer and cardiovascular stuff. It seems like a lot of the stuff that helps cardiovascular helps the immune system, helps decrease cancer, including exercise. There was a big study, 7 minutes of strenuous exercise, just 7 a day, led to about a 30% decreased risk of cancer in the lifetime compared to those that just had normal activity, meaning like didn't actually volitionally exercise.
Here's what I'm hearing, and it seems pretty simple, but I think it's also smart medicine, which is try to eat healthy, try to exercise, right? Beware of supplements. There's not to say that you can't take them, but just remember, try to find them from a manufacturer that may have reasonable reviews so that you're hopefully getting what they say they're giving you. But at the end of the day, it's about just being practical, having moderation, and doing what we've been doing for 300,000 years, and that is to keep moving.
Back to the basics. Just like the cancer treatments, like same thing. It's like we realize that it's going back to the basics.
I love it. So listen, new drugs are often key to breakthroughs in oncological care. We've talked about CAR T, et cetera. But it takes a long time, right? I'm a big believer in opioid-sparing techniques. And so there's a new medication called Jurnavix, which is a oral sodium channel blocker. It took them 27 years to figure it out. I mean, it seems to me in this day and age with AI in particular, that we're hopefully going to be able to see more rapid progress on some of these medications and how we use them. Do you envision that?
I think there's no question. In cancer, it's about 8 years. And think about that for a second. With the scientific discovery and technology and all this stuff that's coming out, you're telling me the new kid on the block started the process 8 years ago? And the answer is yes. And that's because, again, the limitation, I think, without AI compared to with, is going to be so huge.
All right. Dr. Juneja laid out something really important, getting a new drug to market. It's slow and expensive. On average, it takes 12 to 15 years and over $2.5 billion. And that's factoring in not just the wins, but also the dead ends as well. But here's where AI is starting to rewrite the playbook. In recent reports from Boston Consulting Group and several AI-first pharma companies, we're seeing real signs of change. Drug developers using AI were able to shave off 20 to 30% of their time and costs. That is a big deal. And it's not just about discovery. It's also about diagnosis as well. One AI model trained on thousands of CT images hit an impressive 93.06% accuracy rate when identifying lung cancer. So yes, there's still so much more research to be done, but what we're seeing right now is so very promising. AI isn't just speeding up medicine, it's making it sharper. And I'm watching it every step of the way.
I think there's no question. In cancer, it's about 8 years. And think about that for a second. With the scientific discovery and technology and all this stuff that's coming out, you're telling me the new kid on the block started the process 8 years ago? And the answer is yes. And that's because, again, the limitation, I think, without AI compared to with, is going to be so huge. Number one, just to theorize, like how long it takes a scientist to come with different variations of, say, like a protein, or when a protein sticks onto something, can take weeks, whereas the AI model does it now in minutes, right? And it's incredible how much time and resource has been cut down with high, decent probability, again, AI's predictability of something that should work. Then when you get it out there and want to start testing it, getting people to be able to do it, the ones that apply, that are fit for that study, like the appropriate, that takes forever. AI can help that, because imagine clicking a button, having the trial that the AI knows the inclusion exclusion and can read all the charts of everybody and all the labs and all the path report, which it can, and immediately say, yo, these are the 37 people you needed in these 49 states. Tell me how humans figure that out. 49 people in 49 states to be identified just by the humans without communication. So that's what takes so long. And so like one, coming up with it and theorizing, and two, filling the study is those 2 points alone with AI are going to make everything happen so much quicker.
It's just, again, one more reason for me to be bullish on AI for humanity, as wonderfully articulated. So in my experience, the last 5 to 10 years are just accelerating exponentially on innovation, new techniques, and new ideas. I want you to provide some hope for our listeners here. Where do you see us 10 years from now? Are we going to be using the cure word a lot more? Are we going to try and eliminate cancer as a death sentence for patients? Do you have hope? Where are we headed?
I do not think cancer is really going to be around in any of this kind of capacity in 10 years. I think they'll happen. Errors will happen. There'll be early stage 1s and stage 2s, whatever, maybe. But honestly, let me amend that. Technology and scientific understanding wise, it shouldn't be. But at the same time, we know people don't get screened still in this country today and don't have access to a CT scan if they're a smoker and they qualify under certain metrics. Getting the mammogram, getting the colonoscopy. It's that needs to be tackled, and less so our scientific understanding and more the economic stuff and issues. And that's why I do advocacy work. And I think if you want to be there in 10 years, it's not that because we couldn't, like in our human limitation, it's because we couldn't just make it equitable, democratize it, and make it affordable. That's going to be the bigger bottleneck, in my opinion.
So if we can eliminate healthcare disparity, technology is going to propel us to be able to hopefully eliminate cancer from our concerns as patients and as doctors. Really fantastic. Now listen, you're a practicing oncologist, you're a social media educator with a massive following, which I'm jealous of, I might add. You're an entrepreneur, you're involved in multiple ventures. There's only 24 hours in a day. How do you balance it all? What have you learned about managing your time and energy that still allows you to care for patients, but yet also participate and educate so many people, but then also be a part of industry and business as well?
I mean, I think the number one thing is you have to find fulfillment in just about every single thing you do. Like anything that you're doing that isn't fulfilling, it's fine if you have to keep doing it, but you need a timeline to like end that. Because if it's 60% of your day or 70, that'll wear on you, unquestionably. And so the things that I feel very blessed and privileged to do, that I think the world willed me to like try and just help, just to do my part, so to speak, with the education, et cetera, et cetera. It's like I've passed on things that would make my loans get paid, which is like to have an herbal supplement that is based on all science. That would pay way more than these other startups that are frustrating and laborious. But you have to make sure the thing you're doing is fulfilling you. To me, that's a hedge against future regret. It's a hedge against time that could have been spent elsewhere. And then for me, it's having an amazing wife, not even next to, but probably in front of me, that makes it all possible, and 3 children that really just melt away any kind of stress when I play with them every day. So those are the things that I think I feel very fortunate and blessed for.
Well, listen, Dr. Juneja, it is clear that you and we are kindred spirits. I love it. We share a purpose to create meaningful messaging that impacts the lives of patients we will never meet. Whether it's advancing clinical medicine, pushing the boundaries of standard of care, you're building entrepreneurial ventures that challenge the status quo, you're proving that purpose and innovation can exist. And in my opinion, you, sir, are creating and practicing smart medicine. What a pleasure it has been to have you on the show.
I appreciate that a lot, and I appreciate really everyone listening, because you're far ahead in life if these are the things that you're taking the time to pay attention to.
The future of cancer care is something else. I feel genuinely grateful to live in a time when innovation is moving this fast, and even more grateful to have had Dr. Juneja walk us through it all. From CAR T therapies to cancer detecting AI models, we're not just talking about hope anymore. We're talking about progress. And to me, that's smart medicine. I'm Dr. Scott Sigman. Thank you for being here with us. If you've enjoyed this episode, do me a favor. Leave us a rating and follow the show on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Till next time.